Good evening. Good evening. It's now 6:30. I'd like to call the joint session to order. Mr. Russ may lead us in our pledge.
Stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr.
Bow your head, please, if you like. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity for these two boards to come together and discuss the business of educating our children and how we can do it best together. Lord, we all face a lot of challenges, both within our budgets, and how we overcome those challenges will be the measure of our success, and how we work together will be also the measure of our success. So Lord, I ask that you allow us liberty to discuss some difficult topics, but I also ask that we do so with candor and with dignity, but at the same time, Lord, do what's best for our children. Bless this body, bless all that are here tonight, bless our county, and bless our country. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. May, for that prayer. Good evening, and welcome all to our joint meeting composed of two boards of vital importance to this community: the Granville County Board of Education and the Granville County Board of Commission. Last week, we had the pleasure to touring two of our high schools, South Granville High School and J.F. Webb. Both buildings are in need of desperate repairs, but also come with a very large price tag as well. With the decrease in our student enrollment, state funding has also been decreased as well. With that being said, the administration has made cuts in personnel and programs that could be absorbed by other programs to make sure students will experience success. However, funds will still be needed to prepare our schools here, make them very warm and inviting for our students here. It's important to also note to provide our students with a learning environment that's attractive and will show that we take pride in our school buildings. Public schools are good for public, and Granville County Schools continues with a great desire to be a viable option for parents to send their kids to our school each and every day. It is our hope that the county commissioners will continue to support our schools with financial support as they have done in the past. Thank you all for your presence here this evening here. I look forward to a very productive and exciting meeting. Thank you.
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our January 27th, 2025 joint meeting of the Granville County Board of Commissioners and the Granville County Board of Education. I want to thank everyone for attending, and a special thank you to the Board of Education and the Granville County Public Schools Superintendent and staff for hosting this meeting. We truly appreciate it. We appreciate this opportunity to get together to discuss the needs of our schools and of our students. I think we all need to remember that actions taken by elected officials often don't bear fruit immediately. It takes time for the effects to be felt or to be seen by the public. And by that time, many of us have moved on and others have replaced us in our present roles. In the public eye, we are often given credit for good choices that those before us have made, and we're held accountable for decisions that we didn't have a part of, but we still have to answer for. That is part of being an elected official and a responsibility we take when we're elected. We always want to make the best decisions possible based on the information we have, how that information is interpreted, and the revenue we have to work with. When faced with tight budgets, which seems to be an annual event, we try to break things down into three main categories. Number one, our wants. Number two, our needs. And number three, absolutely have to have or can't do without. Every year we're faced with tough choices and have to make unpopular decisions. We want everyone to have their needs met, and we'd like to be able to help everyone to get some of the items on their want list. But there's never enough revenue to do this. The Board of Commissioners is dependent on the county manager and staff to prepare a budget and make recommendations on how to spend the revenue that is available that our citizens provide us with. We also depend on those who receive these funds to make good decisions on how they spend those funds and be good stewards of the taxpayers' funds. I'm sure everyone on the Board of Education feels our pain with regards to revenue and understands all too well about the tough and unpopular decisions that have to be made. Again, thank you for hosting us tonight. I look forward to the staff presentations, some good question and answer sessions, and ultimately better mutual understanding of the difficult work each elected body and institution is tasked with. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gooch. Dr. Winborn?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Chairman. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Good to see you all here today. Very excited about this meeting. In just a few minutes, we'll start the program, but to let everyone know, we are live streaming tonight, and this meeting is also being recorded for everyone to go back and watch. You should each have a copy of the agenda on your table, as well as a hard copy of the presentation, and we will make sure to post this presentation onto our board docs as well, so the public can have access to that. We're going to start out in just a minute with County Manager Cummings sharing some information from the county's perspective. We've got about 20 minutes carved out for that, and then we will follow with a brief presentation from me and our Chief Finance Officer, Ms. Vicki Hines, and then we're going to sit down and let the rest of the meeting be for all of you. Kind of an open floor, open discussion, open questions, to get everyone an opportunity to really dive into the issues and see where it takes us. So I think it'll be a very productive format. Before we do that, though, I've asked Dr. Curran, our Assistant Superintendent for Operations and Human Resources, to lead us in a fun little icebreaker activity. She gets to do something fun tonight. Normally in her role as HR, it's kind of doom and gloom, but Dr. Curran.
Yes, so I'm going to come around and give everyone one of these little sheets, and each one has a question on it. And when I say go, you're going to find someone who is not on your board, or if you are a staff member, is not part of your staff, and you're going to ask each other the questions and come up with a quick answer for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, you're going to exchange the questions and then do it again. And we're going to keep going for about 5 minutes. Okay? So, here we go.
Dr. Curran, change with another person.
Yes, so you'll exchange with another person after you answer the question. So you'll leave with a different question than you came with every time. Is that easy? And some of the questions are silly, and some of them are heart-wrenching, and just a little bit of everything. So you have to be honest, but you don't have to be too honest.
While y'all getting y'all slip questions, make sure when you talk this evening here, share your mics. We have mics on the side here for y'all to share, so make sure you're speaking to the mics so they can be heard from those who are not present in the room. Thank you. Oh. We're going to share, Mr. Gooch.
Okay.
Where are you going? All right, so I'm gonna give you about 15 seconds to go find somebody, and then we'll start the timer. Are we going, people? Let's go now.
So let's go find somebody.
What part of yourself would you like to improve?
Hey, Stan. How you doing? What's up?
I got to read
Yeah, I've been doing this. You had 10 years left. That's it. Start that timer tomorrow. All you had was 10 hours.
Most likely, yeah.
living your life now. So you're all, what is one Because that works. There you go. Okay, how are we?
Switch questions and find a new partner.
So mine is, what is one additional ingredient? Well, I'm going to use something so anticipating what you know, at home we go to his mom called and told me she was going to bring
I know, I'm not
Yeah, who's being left out?
He went on, Tim was in there, but he went in there, and I knew him, and I'm just cracking up. He was trying to slow down. What is one crucial ingredient? You got Paul.
If you had 10 years left to live, how would you live your life differently?
Do something the same. I wouldn't work at a class, but I would just kind of touches me. Sure, that'd be in my head. Someday, you just bounce home. One of your favorite places in Then there's a trick to this. When you give it a find it. It's not on here.
So did you find that you logged that you can safely plug in?
You'll take a picture where one of the requirements.
I was going to say actually just home usually, but I would think if we're talking travel, my favorite place so far is
I've never been.
That's a young man talking right there.
How about this?
Oh,
Maybe I go longer.
beginning to be more and more grateful a few minutes off to spend with everybody. Every time.
I missed that. I was corrected. Their answer was right. Everything else wrong. Usually. Sometimes they don't like it. We generally get a better place than they do at home. Even I learned from experience. Even if it was a hard truth, it's better. Absolutely. Better job. All right, have respect and popularity switch.
Yeah.
Two more switches.
Okay, Mr. Attorney, I cannot get you.
time's up. You can go back to your seats.
Green, you'll follow the directions well.
Where's that?
Hey, let's go. Well,
I can't play the game with you. Right now?
Stan, should I go?
You're up. And Drew, you can just tell Ernie behind you, like next, when you're ready. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Curran. Hope everyone enjoyed that. Some good questions.
Yeah. Good engagement.
That was great. I enjoyed that. Stan said we would be doing an icebreaker and said he had lots of them. He didn't say he had key staff who were going to unveil the final product, but thank you, Dr. Curran. That was good. And I did learn some things about counterparts, so thank you for that as well. Good evening to everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you here again tonight, and also to be inside the historic walls of the Mary Potter Center. Also want to say that I'm especially pleased to have made the acquaintance of Ms. Waters, Ms. Baker, and Ms. Russell tonight, new members of the Board of Education. It's nice to meet you. Wish you all the luck and success I can possibly wish you. It's a hard job that you have, and I appreciate it. For those of you that I haven't met or maybe have just met, my name is Drew Cummings. I am the Granville County Manager, have been in that role since October of 2022. And you may not know, but I come from a family of teachers. I myself was a middle school teacher for 7 years before switching gears to get into local government work, which I've now been doing for close to 20 years. And I'm married to a fine woman who has now been a teacher for close to 30 years. And so teaching is in our family, kind of following and caring about the fate of the educational world, aside from the fact that we also have 3 teenagers, is important to us. So that's a little bit about me. I want to say that I really appreciate the warm relationship and clear communication I and other county staff have with the superintendent and other school system staff. Good communication is paramount to our being able to work together through adversity, which at this point I would think more or less permanently describes the work of counties and school districts in the state of North Carolina, right? It's sort of set up that way. And so we work through it over time, and I think collegial events like this will help us continue to work through it as productively as we can. I thought at some point we had a slide that had our respective budget calendars on it. Nope. But I think it vaporized somewhere. Not that it was all that interesting. The only thing I wanted to mention there is that I appreciate the schools over the past several budget cycles have pushed up some of their budget preparation, and I think that helps you, helps the schools, and it helps us. It helps us help you by kind of making sure that all of the requests and all of the needs are kind of arriving more or less simultaneously in our hopper. And now I'm ready for this slide. Great. I wanted to start by giving the group an overview of the county's overall revenues and expenditures, as this is, this won't be news to any of you, right? This is sort of the broad context within which we operate as we negotiate expenditures on any particular function within the county. Ad valorem refers to property taxes, and as you can see, that dark red chunk represents by far the largest single portion of county revenue. There has been significant growth in the assessed market value of the county's tax base over the past 6 years, as witnessed in the recent reval. And as you can see, again, they're the largest source of revenue for the county, and really for all counties, if I'm not mistaken, in the state. Sales taxes are also worth noting, and there are portions of 2 of our local sales taxes that are part of the sort of required minimum dedicated revenue that counties have to transmit to school systems specifically for capital needs. We did a little bit of a deeper dive into that last year and determined that the county's capital contributions between annual capital outlay and debt service far exceeded the required distributions of those sales tax funds. Next slide. Here, I think this pie chart is fairly self-explanatory, at least at a general level. It shows a breakdown of county expenditures into some general areas. As you can see, our spending on education, which is predominantly, but not solely, for Granville County Public Schools, and I'll get a little more into that, is clearly the largest portion. To head off any questions there might be, public safety includes the sheriff's office, which includes detention, 911, EMS, animal control, and a few other smaller functions. Interestingly, the fire district tax, which is another 6-cent tax on county residents, is not even included in here because it doesn't flow through our general fund, but that's another significant expenditure that the county has started making, and a revenue we have started collecting just in the last few years. Human Services includes the Department of Social Services, Senior Services, Veteran Services, and our investments in our district public health department, and maybe a few other smaller functions. Community Services includes planning, zoning, inspections, led by the inestimable Scott Phillips over here. GIS, cooperative, extension, economic development, libraries, and parks and recreation fall into that category. Next slide. School funding, in addition to being the largest single outflow of funding from the county, it has grown year over year, both in the current expense category and also, especially of late, in the capital funding category. I will note for fact checkers that the last 3 years here, shown here, do include revenue from the county or funding from the county for SROs. So that has stopped, at this point has completely stopped flowing through the school district, but is nonetheless a pretty direct investment by the county in the schools. And so that is included here for the past 3 years. And again, these expenditures shown here represent roughly a third of the county's annual budget. And considering the flat enrollment figures does represent a year-over-year increase in per pupil funding as well. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we have a more detailed breakdown of county funding for the schools in the current fiscal year. And it builds on the current expense and capital outlay funding tracked on the previous slide. Here we have 2 additional categories of funding. There's debt service there, 4.8, nearly 4.9 million. And this is to say the continuing mortgage payments, basically on schools built in the last 20 years. It also includes over $1 million a year that we're paying for the $15 million that was put forward for school capital in 2018. So that debt will continue to be paid off for some time. I guess there is a little bit of that remaining unspent, not much, but hopefully we will chug through that this year. The other, as I just mentioned, right, the other chunk here is the $691,000 for school resource officers. And I actually want to pause there for a second and just recognize the close teamwork and advocacy on the part of a lot of staff and a lot of elected members of both boards that have led us to the point where we are very close to having an SRO in every school. That's a major community success and one that I anticipate we will continue to build on. I also want to dwell briefly on the $2.75 million of Category 1, 2, and 3 capital. This is nearly double the prior year's total, which was just over $1.5 million, and I will be, sort of per the Hawley agreement, I will be recommending an additional $500,000 be added in next year for a new total of $3.25 million. As we should, I might add. I wasn't able to take the tour the other day, but I have toured most, if not all, Granville County schools, and we acknowledge that the need is great. Next slide, please. So in addition to funding for Granville County Public Schools, a proportional piece of which also goes to in charters based on enrollment, as you know, Granville County by statute also has to provide funding for facilities and maintenance at Vance Granville Community College. The $1.34 million noted here is almost entirely for the cost of maintaining the South Campus, all of which falls to Granville County, and as well as beginning to save up for Granville County's 25% obligation for maintenance and facilities at the main campus, just across the line in Vance County. Vance County then is responsible for 75%. The reason we have started saving more aggressively is that Vance County has not been in a position to fund their 75% portion for some time. I don't know when they will be ready, but whenever they're ready, Granville County is also going to have to come up with a chunk of money, and we would rather not have to be digging through the couch cushions at that point. So we're being a little more proactive about saving for that day. In addition to those growing annual expenditures to help Vance Granville maintain their buildings, the county has also set aside a little over $1 million as our contribution to the Advanced Manufacturing Center, which I just heard this evening. I think they should be starting their planning phase in the next month or two, and hope to have that completed by early fall 2026. Commissioner May, did I get that right?
The planning phase be completed March of this year, with the completion of the site at December 2026.
I see. So planning should be completed within the next couple of months. The facility by fall of 2026.
December 2026.
December 2026. Sorry, I misheard you earlier. And thank you for the clarification. So, you know, that is a facility that that I believe, and with our combined work and working with the community college, will be a resource, an important resource for a lot of Granville County Public Schools students, both before and after graduation. Next slide, please. I don't have speaking notes for these because the bullets themselves are fairly self-explanatory. We got challenges first and then opportunities. So this is the county's broken record, right? That we're always having to balance a wide variety of community needs, of which education is one. And with a 6-cent fire tax added in fiscal '23 and an effective 9-cent tax increase last year, along with fairly significant municipal tax rate increases, the board's instruction to me thus far has been to bring back a recommended budget with no tax increase, which is what I intend to do. And obviously that poses significant constraints on what we can do for any of the areas that the county is responsible for. So that's a challenge. It's a challenge every year, and that's a little bit of additional context for how the challenge looks for next year. I know that in both organizations, we're having really significant issues with employee pay and cost increases for employee benefits, utilities, you name it, right? Things are not getting cheaper. And so that's something that we're all wrestling with. And maybe within the wide range of needs, you all are aware that over the past year plus, 15 months, 16 months, the county has been doing a lot of work on what is a draft capital improvement program. I think that has helped us become a lot more aware and have better information about different capital needs across the entire county, including some very significant and probably single most expensive need will be for extensive renovations and additions to the courthouse. That's not right around the corner, but it's certainly inside the 10-year window and something that we have to prepare for. And of course, acknowledging the significant capital needs here and at Vance Granville Community College. I mentioned earlier, right, the 2-year increase in category 1, 2, and 3 capital funding from a little over 1.5 million to 3.25 million. I'm not in a position to say that's enough, that's it, right? But I do think it is a significant addition to county support in that particular area, and is demonstrative of Commissioners' desire to help meet some needs that for a fair while have been unmet or undermet. And so that's what I have on challenges. Next slide, please. Opportunities that seem to be in front of one or both of our boards and institutions. One of them is reaping the benefits of continued right-sizing and consolidation. Always two sides of every coin, right? I think our commissioners recognize that consolidation has not been and is not an easy conversation in the education community. And yet, what I've at least heard from the superintendent about the benefits of and savings coming from that consolidation are significant, right? Those are, every dollar saved through that is a dollar that we don't have to ask county residents to pay in additional taxes, and so that's critical. There's some interesting potential joint work that we've been talking about for a while with the school system and Vance Granville on building maintenance and utilities. I wouldn't say those are fully bearing fruit yet, and a lot of that is on me and just county bandwidth to project manage lots of things at the same time, but I do think that's an interesting and potentially fruitful area. The opportunities presented by the Advanced Manufacturing Center, I think, are of great interest to me, how we can maximize that, both for the benefit of the business park around it, but really more so for the students in Granville County and in the region who could benefit from direct kind of just-in-time job training on the same kinds of machines that they'd be working on in a factory here in Granville County, for example. I certainly anticipate, there's been a lot of this already, but certainly anticipate continued cooperative work to expand safety funding through grants, other state funding, municipal funding, and possible additional county funding as well. So all of those, I think, are interesting and exciting opportunities. And that's what I have for you this evening. I'd be happy to hand the conch over to the superintendent. But maybe if there are any clarifying questions that anybody wants to ask first, I'm happy to answer those. All right. Well, I will take my seat, and here comes the superintendent. Stay here in case I have to go back out. That sounds good.
Well, good evening again, and thank you, Drew. That was excellent. Definitely appreciate that information. Focus forward. This is our mantra, and I would like to echo some things that Drew mentioned earlier. It is wonderful to have the relationship, the collaboration, the collegial spirit that we've developed between the administrations, but also, I believe, between the board, because it's enabling us to look to the future and try to build upon all the great things that are happening. So I am very grateful for the relationship that we have. So thank you all for that. Next slide, please, Mr. Connor. I wanted to put in lights again, once again, our strategic priorities, and remind all of you and those who may be watching remotely tonight or watching this recording later This is our blueprint. This is our guidebook for how we're moving our district forward. If it's not under one of these priorities, we're not spending time or energy on it. Our board is committed to this strategic plan, which was developed in partnership with the community. And under each of those priorities, we have specific action steps that we are taking. And we are using metrics to determine if what we're doing is working. And where it's not, we're making changes. And where it is, we're doubling down. I'm not going to be going through all 5 of these tonight, but I am going to hit on a couple of them, and I'm going to talk about a few items that have an impact on all 5. If you would, Mr. Connor, next slide. Safety. The safety and well-being of our students and our staff is our absolute priority. And this is one area where I have been able to fully count on the county and our municipalities. It's been amazing the amount of support we've been getting. The partnership, the collaboration, the ability to text, call, meet, whenever is needed it's been phenomenal. The barriers have just seemingly fallen away over the last year and a half, and I'm really grateful for that. Drew, you mentioned school resource officers. I am so excited about this. We are at 12 positions right now, and that is far more than we had before. Nearly all of those are filled. We've had a little bit of turnover recently and are making some tweaks and adjustments, but that number of 12 officers would not be possible if it weren't for the sheriff, who I would like to give tremendous props, Sheriff Fountain, for his support going above and beyond. Also to the city of Creedmoor, who I believe is represented here tonight, have been tremendous in providing funding and highly qualified people for those positions, as well as Butner Public Safety, who provides an SRO, and I'm pleased that Oxford Police Department has pledged to come on board next year. So very excited about that. We received an increase in our grant funding from the state. I believe it was $350,000 per year over a 2-year period. That's almost double the amount we received before. We'll be passing those funds right along to the county. We also are awaiting a large request for equipment and training. I believe it was over $600,000 that we put into the application. We hope to hear information about that soon. And also, for those of you who don't know, we're very happy about our district safety officer. Keith King, who is the retired chief of police from Creedmoor, has been doing a phenomenal job of leading these efforts. So I'm feeling very good about this priority and the direction we're going in. And I feel the support from everyone in this room and from our municipalities. So once again, thanks for that. Next slide. Drew, you referenced school consolidation, and this creeps into every single one of our priorities. And it is such a difficult conversation to have. We don't want to close a single school. But I am so proud of our Board of Education for unanimously making the difficult decisions to reduce our footprint and get us heading in the right direction. As a summary, I'm going to walk everyone through this to make sure we're all clear on what happened and where we in the timeline for this. Starting next school year, we will move from 3 traditional high schools to 2. South Granville High School and J.F. Webb High School will be our 2 traditional high schools. Granville Early College will continue in its role. Granville Central High School will be closed, and that campus will be converted to a new middle school. Our current 3 traditional middle schools will be scaled back to 2. Granville Central Middle School will be located on the former campus of Granville Central High School, and we will have Northern Granville Middle School. Butner STEM Middle School and G.C. Hawley Middle School will be closed. But then finally, we're taking the extra step of relocating Butner STEM Elementary School to the campus of the former Butner STEM Middle School. That's a typo there. That should read Butner STEM Middle School, that last line. So they will have a much larger and more modern campus for the middle school. And all of that is going to take place before August of 2025. So we have our work cut out for us, but we're excited. All the plans are on track, on time, and moving well. But, we do know this might not be enough. If our enrollment continues to be chipped away at, we might have to look at additional steps down the road. And that's something our board will take up after we get through this stage in the process. Next slide. So what has this accomplished? Well, Drew, you referenced earlier, but here's the dollar signs. It's over $3 million annual recurring savings for our school district. Not a one-time savings, but a moving forward savings. That has to do with a number of factors. I was speaking with the commissioner about that before the meeting. It's not just the operations and the savings of the buildings, but it also has to do with a lot of with our staffing, being more efficient in how we can serve our students. We get funded based on the number of students we have, not based on the number of schools. So obviously, if we can reduce our physical footprint, we're going to spend a lot less money providing the same services. What's not up here that I can't put a price tag on is the opportunities the improved opportunities this will give our children, our students. At our two high schools, because there'll be around 800 to 900 students apiece, we'll be offered to be able to expand the offerings for advanced placement courses, honors courses, career and technical education courses with the trades, more arts programs, more competitive athletics, more clubs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's invaluable. Having high schools that have a certain size really provide big advantages for our kids. So we're excited about that. I will note that in the fall of 2025, we'll have some surplus properties. So interested customers out there, hope you're paying attention. Of course, the county commissioners will have the first right of refusal. I've had some informal conversations with the municipal leaders at Butner and Creedmoor, and I think there may be some interest and some opportunities to explore innovative partnerships there. So that's something for all of us to be thinking about 6 or 7 months out from now. How could we get a win-win-win? Get some revenue for the school district to help apply towards our capital needs, but help, improve the services for our municipalities and for our citizens. So some neat things I think we could come up with. Next slide. I also want to just mention another opportunity very quickly. It's around our utilities expenses. We spend over $3 million a year on utilities, on electricity, water, natural gas, powering our schools. Initial estimates that I've looked into, we could save anywhere from 15 to 25% if we became more efficient. And we are looking into the possibility of a performance contract, which essentially is entering into a negotiation with a third party. The county, of course, would join with us on this, to guarantee a certain savings in our utility bills and just reinvesting in that into some facility improvements. So I'll be sharing more about that and what that could mean. But it could be a considerable amount of capital we could access to help with our capital projects. Next slide. And that's just an example of how it would work. Basically, you save money on your energy bill. That money is redirected to pay off a debt service that we would have to address core needs like roofing, HVAC, things that would make our schools more efficient, and we wouldn't have to use as much energy to cool and heat them. New windows, LED lights, that kind of thing. There's a considerable amount of money that we could save and then redirect. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to take a minute and turn it over to Ms. Vicki Hines, our Chief Finance Officer, and she's going to dive into some topics about our budget, our fund balance, and our rankings as a county financial health. So, Ms. Hines.
Thank you. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Just wanted to start off with a quick look at where we are today in the district budget. You can see in the chart on the left, that is our current budget, our just under $105 million budget. You can see that over half of our funding comes from the state, and almost a quarter from the county. I do want to point out that in that orange chart on the right is our county appropriation for this year as well, including current expense and capital outlay. I do want to point out that those numbers on the left, under local current expense and capital outlay, include our fund balance, and that's why those numbers don't match up specifically. But just wanted to give you an overall view of that. Next slide, please. A closer look is at our budget by category. We spend 69% of our budget currently is dedicated to salaries and benefits. Considering we are a people-oriented type of business we have here, that makes perfect sense. Operating costs 21%. I do want to point out that transfers and other, that really refers to the funds that we send to the charter schools and that we have to contribute to our child nutrition program as well. So that's about 5% of our overall budget goes to that. Next slide, please. A little bit deeper into our budget, we like to, our budget resolution is formed by purpose. And I think it provides a nice little snapshot of what we do in the district. That top section with all of the numbers starting with 5, that's what we call our 5,000s, those are our school-based instructional expenses. And as you can see, that's where the vast majority of our expenses are. 67% of our funding is dedicated to school-based instructional support. The next area you see is what's considered district level support. What's important to know is that section is not central office specifically, but we call it district level support. If you notice that 65, that one long line there, operational support, it's important to note that district level support includes transportation, maintenance, all of our capital. That's why that's such a large portion of that area. So our district support services is about 23% of our overall budget. The next section, those 7,000s, is our after-school child nutrition, our business type programs. And then, of course, the 8,000 series, again, those transfers to charters and indirect costs and child nutrition. Again, just that idea that the vast majority of our funds goes exactly where they should go as the school-based instructional. So that's where we are. It's always important to look at where we expect to land at the end of the year as well. So we always take a look at our fund balance. After our 23-24 audit, we started this school year with $5.8 million in our fund balance. We consider that our emergency fund. We have budgeted $4.1 million in fund balance this year, and that's that post-ESSER, and there's just a lot of things that go into that $4.1 million, and part of that is the inefficiencies that we had noted and the reason for our consolidation efforts. If we were to use all that $4.1 million, that would leave us with $1.7 million in fund balance at year end, which is about 2.2% of our operating budget. That includes state, local, and some federal funds. That $4.1 million, of course, made us cringe a little bit as we planned that budget, and I'm happy to say that we have found some significant savings already this year in our efforts, and all of those savings, there is a portion of those savings that will be used to pay for these consolidation efforts. The costs that come along with consolidation should be able to be covered within our existing allocation of fund balance. Next slide, please.
Ms. Hines,
Yes,
real quick,
of course.
Can you talk about what some of those expenses are related to consolidation, such as?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The moving, that's a big part of it, the physical moving. There are some small items that need to be fixed, especially when we're talking about moving the elementary school into the middle school building. There are obviously some sizing issues that need to be corrected and in some of the facilities. But moving costs, painting, rebranding, things like that have to be updated. So we've set aside, we're expecting to, in all of our planning, we've set aside about $700,000 for those costs. I'm hoping we'll come in under that, but that is the expectation, that it would be in that area. But again, we have already found that within the $4.1 million that we had already set aside for fund balance in the savings. Any other questions?
Ms. Hines, where are we located? I see county tier designation. Are we 1, 2, or 3 for Granville County? What tier are we in for a low wealth district?
You have read my mind. That is absolutely what we're going to talk about next.
Okay.
Congratulations, Granville County, for moving to a Tier 3 designation for development. It is a wonderful thing. The big caution, the big caution sign.
Let me hear that.
Is that it has effects on funding, and that includes our funding. And we're still figuring out what those effects are. A lot of it is unknown, but we're just kind of wanted to bring up what those potentials are from the district perspective. We receive about almost $3.5 million in low wealth funds, what are called low wealth funds, every year. It's a very complicated calculation that's related to the county's property tax rate and median income. I don't believe that funding will go away, but it definitely could be impacted. We are anxiously looking at what that impact will be, but we'll be looking into that. We've been noticing a decrease over time as the percentages change, but we'll be looking into that. That next item, that state supplemental funds for teachers' compensation, that additional funding is related to we only get that funding if we are also eligible for low wealth funding. So that funding is important. What's important about that supplemental fund is that was part of our savings that we were able to find this year. You know, we've talked about local supplement before and wanting to do that extra 2% local supplement. Well, we were able to use this state supplemental funds to provide that extra 2% this year. And we want to continue doing that, and so we hope to continue receiving that state supplement to be able to do that. Yes.
Quick question about your fund balance. Is there a state policy or internal policy that mandates you keep a percent in your fund balance?
That's a wonderful question, and that is a question that's up for debate. Not tonight. Historically, I've always learned, our auditors have always said 8%. You want to keep 8% of your operating funds. If you go back to the slide before, if you would. That chart on the left kind of refers to that 8%. That if we were to maintain that 8% of our operating funds, we would be looking at $6.2 million in fund balance, and that's been our goal for many years. Come to find out, there was an EdNC article this past year. There is no law for districts about fund balance. Best practice was always the 8%. However, in this article, there was a lovely comparison of all of the districts and their fund balances, and they listed the percentage of fund balance. But the percentage of fund balance they were listing was the percentage of local funds. So if we look at our local funds there, 8% of that 19 million would be about 1.5 million, which really, that means we'd be ending in pretty good stead if we were to look at it that way. The difficulty with looking at it that way is when we look at our state and federal funds, we frequently don't find out that we're receiving significant decreases until September or October, after the school year has already started, and we've already had plans in place and have hired our people, and kids are already, they have their teachers. So that additional amount gives us a year to make that adjustment. And that's why we like to consider state and those federal funds in that fund balance as well. But again, that was a very long answer to your question, but no, there is no official requirement.
And if I may, the change from a Tier 2 to a Tier 3 county, this isn't the first time we've been changed to Tier 3. It happened several years ago. It was for 1 year, and we were moved back to a Tier 2. So it's kind of a constant movement. I think the state has 20 Tier 1 counties, 40 Tier 2, and 40 Tier 3. So it's a fine line you walk sometimes between 2 and 3. So hopefully we'll be back to a 2 where we'll be eligible for more funding.
Absolutely. We talked about low wealth and state supplemental funding. The only number that we know about officially is the early college funding. We know that our early college funding will decrease by $50,000. Tier 1 counties get one amount, Tier 2, Tier 3, everybody gets different amounts. That's the only official number that we know is different. And of course, we know that that state capital money is a little more complicated as well. So those are the big thoughts that we have, going on as we're as we're beginning the process of developing our budget for next year. These are some of the things that we have in our minds. Our finance committee is working, and our district staff are working on budgets right now. So we will have that to you very soon. Did you want to have anything else to say?
I think that was the last slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So any general questions about anything that we've shared?
You want to give each board member an opportunity to speak?
I realized one omission from my comments, which was that, like the school's work, and nothing that I present or pull together for a meeting like this is done just by me, and I wanted to recognize the efforts of Deputy County Manager Karina Weichel, who is under the weather. I think I gave her what I got at the end of last week. And also our management analyst, David Scheck-Snyder. You raise your hand quickly. David has been, he's our relatively new management analyst and has really been more than pulling his weight on a lot of different fronts, including working on our fleet management, a lot of work on our SRO projects, trying to help make sense of that complicated field, and also lots of other kind of revenue and expenditure analysis. So I appreciate both of their help very much.
So with that, I guess we can transition to the sort of the final part of the meeting, and that's really just open floor. And I guess we can take our seats and let you guys sort of open the mics.
For the commissioners, let's just go down the line, and District 1, Commissioner Jay, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Only comment. I'd just like to thank the school board for putting this together. We sit down and itching out our problem. I did take the tour last Tuesday, I think last Thursday. Oh, Monday, Tuesday.
was up Thursday one last week.
One of those days.
It was one of the, I know it was one of the days we took the school last week. And, it was very helpful. It took me back like the first tour I took with middle school. It took me back like some of the same things that I saw happen on the middle school, when I took the tour. Seemed like it's happening into our two high schools. I saw the mistakes. I see your problem. And I see your needs. And where do we go from here? We got to do some looking. So all I'm saying, so we got to do some soul searching and look for what we need to do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Jay. District 2, Commissioner Williford.
Kudos to the school board for making tough decisions on closures. That's always a hard thing. School's always a part of the community, and it's tough to do that in this kind of economic environment. It was, I'm sure, a hard decision, but it was, I think, the right decision, as we can see with the savings. I also went on the tour last week, and I must say it was an eye-opener to see South Granville. It was pretty bad shape. And we do need to make corrections to the best we can. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Williford. District 3, Commissioner Griffin.
Well, I'd like to thank the school board for putting on this meeting tonight, Mr. Winborn and other school board members for allowing us to come and be a part and listen. I don't know how many of you are representatives of Granville County Schools, but I am. I went to the old STEM school in STEM that's no longer there except for one of the buildings. I had the distinct honor and privilege, which I didn't know at the time, to attend C.G. Hawley Elementary School, and then to go on and graduate at South Granville High School in 1979. I never knew much about Webb or the Northern County schools because I wasn't an athlete. I brought up on the farm and I had to work, so my life consisted of going to school and going home and going to work. However, I was always proud of our schools, and I always, when I ride by South Granville, I see that sign out front. It says, "Once a Viking, always a Viking." And I'm proud he's still a Viking. However, last week when we took that school tour, I was almost emotional at the condition in which my alma mater was in. Some of the problems there at school, and I'm not laying blame on anybody except for all of us, on all the boards and all the citizens of the community. We've kind of let that school run by. One of the other commissioners and I talked about, say, yeah, riding by that high school, it looks real nice. And it does, outside. But once you tour the inside of that school had a lot of problems. Some of the problems can be fixed, I'm sure, without a lot of cost, but just some good hard elbow grease. Some of the things that I think that are wrong at that school do not even need to be aired in this meeting. I know I'm the new kid on the block, but when I ran for this office, I said I was going to be a man of the people, and that's what I'm here for. Students at South Granville High School and at our schools deserve better than what they're having to deal with at South Granville High School. I wish I felt like I could say some of the things that I saw there that hurt my feelings so bad, but I don't want to draw any attention to any one person or any particular group or administration. But I made Dr. Winborn aware of what I felt and what I saw. I am a proponent of once we get something, we take care of it, we polish it, we continue to maintain it, and look after it. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, we have not done that. I know it's going to take some money to fix those problems, but once we fix those problems, we need to hold people accountable for maintaining what is ours, what belongs to the students at that high school. Thank you again for allowing me to come tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. We'll move on to District 4. Dr. Cozart.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and I too want to thank the Board of Education for hosting this meeting. I'll try not to ramble too much, but as a 1976 graduate of J.F. Webb High School, I must say the other day, the school, the conditions of things, in a lot of ways made me feel very proud. Had a chance to go over and see the band room area, that hall that was added some years ago, and realize what that means for our students there. Gym, absolutely magnificent. But what I desire for Webb, I desire for all the students. And I've been very, very vocal in telling people as I've been approached when we visited Hawley. I think Commissioner Jay mentioned this. My only comments were, get those students out of that school as soon as you can. Our students deserve the best, and that just didn't represent what I thought our kids need to be in. I'm thinking about an optimistic look at this situation. Debt service for the county. I think it's another year, and we start to tell off some of our debt service, I believe. Seeing the figure with the savings the school system will have with the consolidation. I'm just hoping there are brighter days ahead where we can deal with things timely, that we'll have the extra resources to commit without necessarily finding new resources through taxes, but be able to take that money and put it back into our schools. I want to commend the school board on adopting your priorities. I have heard more positive comments as it relates to safe and healthy campuses. There have been some hard decisions to make, and I know administrators have had to, for lack of a better word, redirect some students in terms of some behavioral things. But I will tell you, it is well worth it, and it's causing people to have a lot more confidence in our schools. So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Winborn, and to your team, to all of the principals for cracking down and making sure these environments in our schools represent what we want for our boys and girls. As a grandparent at West Oxford, I'm very proud to say I see a high level of parent involvement out there. I've been to a number of events, and I must say I'm encouraged by what I see. I think there's a lot of reason for optimism, and I'm thinking and hoping that as we consolidate, we'll be able to do even more for our students in terms of offerings and give them a good high school experience. I want these students who are going through school now to feel like I did when I was at Webb and how I felt when I left. Now, of course, my senior year, I probably walked around like I owned the place, but I want them to feel good about their schools, to go there happy, to have a staff there. And thanks to the Board of Ed for the joint letter to seek the $50,000 for beginning teachers. I think that's awesome. And I think we have a spirit of working together, and I feel it, and I'm excited about what we can do working together for our boys and girls. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you for your remarks, Dr. Cozart. District 5, Commissioner Russ May.
There's no doubt that the schools need to be in better shape. I don't think our board's ignored it. I don't think they're caught by surprise. The fact is that the schools have been talking consolidation for years upon years. And the savings from that consolidation most certainly would have compounded over the year after year after year. The two anchor high schools in this county, whether folks want to acknowledge or not, the South Granville High School and Oxford Webb. The locations are critical to the vitality of the communities that they serve. Doesn't mean that Central was not, so I applaud you for that difficult decision. But as a commissioner, it was clear that we needed more ways to be able to help our school systems. We've tried. We've worked closely with our legislators. We've tried to do everything we could to bring more funding. We've actually articulated behind the scenes and working with municipalities to get some additional SRO help, and again, working with our county manager to see those increases of capital put in place so we can improve things. As for the maintenance of the schools and things of that nature, that's something the county manager's bailiwick. That is the matter to be resolved by the school board, and that we do the best we can to provide the funding that's available for us to provide. As I look at what the county manager showed tonight, and we see it every budget year, I think our board works very hard to try to meet the needs of our students. I also think that maybe we can do better. We look at our budgets, tune our budgets up, see where we can find additional funding, if that funding's available. But at the end of the day is that, we can only do that working collectively together. But I think that if we're being intellectually honest, unfortunately, some decisions that were not made, that were delayed, has created some of these issues, and that hopefully now, working together with these boards, as we work with every board, may not always agree with what the county commissioner was saying, or what the school board was saying, but going forward, if we can work collectively together, we can find more solutions working together than we can working against each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. District 6, Commissioner Tim Karen.
Yeah, we'll try and keep positive here. So, I've been in this chair for 14 years now, and I know when I came on board, our outlay to the school system here in Granville County was under $14 million a year. Now it's $28 million a year. Our student age population, according to our census, 20 years ago was about 10,000 students that fell in that range. Today, 20 years later, 2 censuses later, it's the same. The one big difference is that now we've got about 6,300 students, 6,500 students who choose to use our traditional public schools. I know Oxford Prep and Falls Lake Academy do fill a niche within our communities. I know Falls Lake started in 2013. Decisions were being made in the 08s, 09s, 2000 timeframe without any idea whatsoever that those changes were going to occur. So I will give the school system credit and say that you were blindsided. That being said, since that time, analysis paralysis had taken over. But I've seen that end. I believe that the corner has been turned. I think that the consolidations that have taken place have been a very, very good thing, and I think they will bear fruit. The superintendent mentioned all the good things that come from a tight situation in a high school where you can have the AP classes or the, specialty one-off classes, and you can muster up, 20, 30 kids to take a class, as opposed to trying to find that same number when you've got a half of that. It's just not possible. Economies of scale are a good thing in this situation. So I look forward to what's on the horizon. Money's not always the answer. I think we need to have innovative things. I think that I wasn't surprised by the conditions of the schools. I'm in the schools as a community member. My daughter went to Mount Energy, and it was a brand new school-ish back when she was there, and it still looks great. Got a couple things with that. I know, but most of the schools, for what they are, There are some deferred maintenances that goes along with it, but things like roofs and air conditioning have a certain useful life. And those do change with time as far as, we all know from a client standpoint in our old house, you've got that one refrigerator from 1953 that you remembered that still works, and then everything else lasts like 10 years. I don't know what happens with some of this stuff, but it's no different for our school systems with chillers and all that kind of stuff. But the years of, I call it a squirrel, where a fancy new product or a promotional, educational platform comes down the path and you all jump on it. I hope those things are, carry through and follow through are going to be important. Instead of getting the next shiny little thing, I think that we put a little bit of money in our facilities, show a little pride. We need a pool. Drew mentioned earlier, we had a 9-cent tax increase last year. That's huge. So this year's just not going to happen. So as far as new revenue, I think we look to our savings as our new revenue, and I think that it was illustrated, if we can get those things to come to fruition, knock them out. I know the energy costs and things, I know back, we'll just call it the Farley years, we had a pretty good Energy Star review rating thing that happened, and there was a substantial decrease in amount of expenditures, but those kind of things, again, are cyclical, and I think we need to upgrade from that perspective. But I'm prattling, so I'll stop there. But I think that this current administration, the last 2 years, I've seen a marked difference. I think this is our second annual get-together, right? So I'm not saying that's the reason, but I think communication has been lacking for a few years, and I think that's improved greatly. Happy to see that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Karen. And just for the record, I actually did graduate from South Granville High School in 1972. A lot of people think it was a joint decision that everybody decided it's best I move on, but I did get the diploma. But, I want to commend the Board of Education for the work they've done in consolidating and closing schools and trying to rein your expenses in and have more money to do the things that need to be done, the things that have obviously slipped through the cracks, some maintenance issues and such. And, when in my opening remarks, when I said actions taken by elected officials often don't bear fruit immediately, it takes time for the effects to be felt or to be seen by the public. Well, the effects should start kicking in. The effects of y'all's decision should start kicking in the 25-26 school year. And it will carry forward each and every year after that. And it's going to lead to a lot of income freed up, a lot of revenue freed up in the years to come. And, people will look back on this and some will say you guys made a great decision, some will disagree. But you have to make the best decision you can with the information you have at that time. And I commend you for your decisions and on this matter, and thank you. And with that, I'm going to try to keep it brief and turn it over to our Board of Education Chair.
Thanks very much. Board members, please share close remarks you'd like to, starting with my right here, Ms. Katrina Waters, and go down the table after my close remarks toward the end. Thank you.
First of all, good evening to everyone. Unfortunately, I was not privy to being able to participate in the tour that occurred recently due to grand jury duty. But what I want to say is, looking around tonight and listening and just catching vibes, let's all kind of focus on there's a change on the horizon. And one thing I stand behind is together you can succeed. Divided, you will fall. And we all have to, I'll say, recultivate our thoughts, our visions, as two boards. We might not always agree, but my hope is that once decisions are made, of course it's going to be done for the better of the children. That's always the case. Or the facilities. However, once these decisions are made, if we can stand behind what we say, and I know you cannot turn water into gold. However, whatever resources both boards have, I feel if we put them together, that we can accomplish and succeed as things are being reconstructed for the betterment of the schools and the education of these children. Working collectively tonight and cooperatively, I feel that this is a milestone. I think he said, I'm new on the block too, but I think I heard someone say this is the second annual joint meeting. So I'm looking at positive things with this. And as Ms. Hines gave her presentation, showing all of the financial components, if we all think on that line, it is my hope that we can, as two boards, come together and feed upon one another to replenish what is lacking or to recover what is not there anymore. But it is extremely important to me that the progress that is made or the initiatives that are accomplished, that we do them together. So in closing, let me say, let us move forward together and stand and conquer for the children of Granville County Public Schools.
Thank you, Board Members Waters. Any comments?
I'm not one to make huge lavish comments, so I'll keep it customarily brief. But one thing I would like to highlight that I think has made a huge difference for us over the past 2 years is the zero-based budgeting that Dr. Winborn and Ms. Hines have really put together. And it's allowed us to really kind of look at all of the different things to make sure that we're operating as efficiently as possible, and then on top of it, the consolidation to follow. So I just wanted to bring that to light and thank them for doing that, because I think we would also still be in a more precarious position had they not followed through those initiatives. As far as, gosh, where we've been when I first rotated onto this board, tensions sometimes were high for those of you who were also here with me during that time. And I have to say, I think we've done a really good job making sure that we've remained transparent on both sides. And we've worked really hard to get to this point. And I think the last couple of years have really, I mean, it's been delightful, honestly, getting together with the two boards. Like everybody, you know, there's water under the bridge that nobody, you know, everything flows, and it's really been so nice. And so I think keeping that going is what I'm most looking forward to, and keeping everybody looking forward and not obsessing over what has been. And I want to thank everyone again for another pleasant evening, and I appreciate each of you.
Thank you. Board Member Baker?
Good evening. As a couple have said, I am another one of the new kids on the block. But a lot of times with new kids comes new opportunities, new ideas, and I hope that I can bring a lot of that to this board. As far as the tours a week ago, I was shocked. It was disturbing, honestly, that I'm not from Granville County. I'm from Durham County. I've been here 15 years. But to think that the students that I now represent are going to schools like South Granville really bothers me. There's a lot we can do to just clean up and make the schools better, and it won't cost much money, but there are a lot of things that it depends on the money that we have and what we do with it. So I plan to advocate for the students, which is what my goal was when I took this position a few months ago, because they are my number one priority, and I will not quit fighting for them. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Hayes?
Good evening, everyone. So I want to thank you all again for last Tuesday, those of you that could make it out for the tours, and then also later that evening, a special thanks for joining us in our efforts to send the letter to the General Assembly to advocate not just for higher teacher pay, but also our non-certified staff. That's so important. And I want to thank you guys for your support on consolidation. I've been to some of your meetings, and I've heard you speak candidly about it. You guys have given your support at meetings and to members of the public, and I really appreciate that. It was really a really tough time around this table. But I want to build a little bit off of what Ms. Lebrecht said, and you know that we did some zero-based budgeting last year, and I really want to thank our finance department for that. But, you know, we had significant savings doing that. And now that we've gotten through consolidation, I personally would be interested in hearing, you know, if the county's going to be looking into doing some zero-based budgeting. I think it's a great time for all of our government entities to look into being more efficient, especially considering, you know, we've heard from all of you that you don't plan to raise taxes again, which I'm a taxpayer, so I appreciate a lot. But, you know, maybe there's places that you guys can find some savings and then, you know, reinvest those, and not just with us, of course. I mean, that would be nice, but, you know, public safety, I know that you guys are really trying to bring a lot of the county departments up to speed. So I'm just thinking if we could do it, then I'm sure that maybe everybody else in Granville could find some benefits from doing that as well. And that's it.
Excuse me, Ms. Chair. We have discussed that with the county manager, and so we'll see how far we can move with that, but that has been in discussion with him, and we are reviewing department budgets as we speak. So thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hayes. Board Member, what's your last name? Anderson.
That's okay. Just want to say good evening to everyone again, and this has really been eye-opening and a great session. I think this is my first time having a joint session like this. I probably might have been out of town or whatever when you did it before, if you did it, but this was great. And yes, so we've talked about things that impacts everyone. I think Ms. Lebrecht and I came on at the same time, and I also, when I first got on board, I know it was that same year that we went over to GC Hollow and took that tour there, and I was shocked as what Commissioner Jay just mentioned, not to mention shocked again when we did the tour last week, because it was truly, when we went into the tour last week at South Granville, it brought me back to GC Holly, completely back, like, oh no, I've seen this before. But anyway, working together is what it's all about. It really is what it's all about. The consolidation, yes. You know, I would say all of my sister board members, we had to, you know, make some hard decisions, but that's what you have to do when it gets down to it. You have to make those hard decisions. And, you know you're doing it for the best of, you know, what we can bring to our students. That's what you have to do, you know, what we can bring to the students. So I have one little last saying, thank you all again, and to the Board of Commissioners teams and the Board of Education team. You all have heard the saying, teamwork makes the dreams work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Anderson. Board Member Russell?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Mr. Cummins and Dr. Winborn and Ms. Hines for the excellent presentations on the financial needs and the status and the income and all of that. I think there's a general consensus and acknowledgement that our high schools do need funding, and there's a commitment to that. And I like the forward thinking. I like the ideas about saving. Frankly, when I went on the tour Thursday, I was so discouraging to see the conditions, and I agree with Commissioner Griffin. I had no idea South Granville was in such dire need of maintenance and renovation and care. It almost moved me to tears because the learning environment, the physical learning environment of a school directly impacts student achievement and student motivation. So we really need to send some positive messages there, and we do need to think about the children first, about what's good for the children. And I appreciate that commitment to do that. And that's what I'll always try to do. And I thank you.
Thank you as well. I just kind of said 2 words here. The Granville County Board of Education, the Granville County Commissioners here, vital boards in this county here. And I must say, I don't know who coined the statement here, but we are stronger together. Thank you for coming this evening here. Have a safe trip home, and we'll see you next year with the same spirit of cooperation. Thanks so very much. You are dismissed from class. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that's fine. We adjourn now?
We are adjourned.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.